Chen thought graduation day would be her moment of triumph. Instead, it became her most humiliating experience, until a stranger's unexpected speech changed everything. What happened next left the entire auditorium speechless and taught everyone a lesson they'd never forget. If you've ever been underestimated or made to feel like you don't belong, this story will show you that sometimes justice comes from the most unexpected places. Maya had always been different from her classmates at Westfield University. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. While they arrived in luxury cars with designer bags, she took 3 buses to get to campus each morning. While they complained about their trust fund allowances being late, she worked double shifts at the campus bookstore to pay for textbooks. While they networked at exclusive fraternity parties, she studied in the library until closing time. 4 years of pre-med had been the hardest challenge of her life. Maya's mother, Linda, worked as a night shift cleaner at a downtown office building, and her father had left when Maya was 12. Every semester felt like climbing a mountain without proper equipment, watching others glide past with resources she could only dream of having. The scholarship that brought Maya to Westfield covered tuition, but everything else, books, food, housing, came from her own determination and her mother's sacrifices. She lived in the cheapest dorm on campus, ate ramen noodles for dinner most nights, and wore the same 3 outfits in rotation. Her classmates noticed, and they weren't kind about it. Victoria Sterling was everything Maya wasn't: blonde, wealthy, and connected. Victoria's father owned a chain of private hospitals across the state. She lived in the premium sorority house, drove a BMW her parents bought for her 16th birthday, and never seemed to study, yet somehow maintained decent grades. Victoria had made it clear from freshman year that she considered Maya an outsider who didn't belong in their world. The pre-med program at Westfield was notoriously competitive. Only 30 students were accepted each year, and the pressure to succeed was intense. Maya threw herself into her studies with a desperation that her privileged classmates couldn't understand. While they saw medical school as their birthright, she saw it as her only chance to change her family's future. Throughout college, Maya had endured countless small humiliations. Group projects where she was excluded from study sessions at expensive restaurants. Lab partnerships where students complained about working with scholarship kids. Comments about her clothes, her background, her inability to join spring break trips to Europe. Each incident chipped away at her confidence, but she persevered because she had no other choice. The worst treatment came from Victoria and her inner circle: Ashley Thornton, whose family owned several country clubs, and Madison Worth, daughter of a pharmaceutical company executive. They had perfected the art of making Maya feel invisible, while simultaneously ensuring everyone noticed her differences. Their cruelty was sophisticated, wrapped in false concern and backhanded compliments that left Maya questioning whether she was being oversensitive. During their junior year, when Maya received recognition for having the highest grades in organic chemistry, Victoria had smiled sweetly and said, "It must be nice to have so much free time to study when you don't have social obligations." When Maya couldn't afford the expensive review course for the MCAT, Ashley had offered to lend her old materials, since some people need all the help they can get. Each comment was delivered with a smile, making Maya feel like she was imagining the malice behind their words. The pressure intensified during senior year as medical school applications loomed. Maya had applied to 15 schools, knowing her chances were slim despite her perfect grades. She needed full scholarships everywhere, which limited her options significantly. Meanwhile, Victoria and her friends casually discussed which prestigious programs they'd choose, as if acceptance was guaranteed. Maya's mother worked extra hours that year, taking on weekend shifts to help pay for application fees. Linda Chen had immigrated from Taiwan with nothing but determination, and had always told Maya that education was the key to a better life. Watching her mother's hands crack from the harsh cleaning chemicals, seeing her fall asleep standing up from exhaustion, motivated Maya to push through every obstacle. The medical school interviews were grueling. Maya borrowed a suit from the Career Center and took overnight buses to save money on flights. She researched each program intensively, preparing for questions about her background and her motivations. In interview after interview, she spoke passionately about wanting to serve underserved communities, about understanding what it meant to struggle for healthcare access. While Maya stressed over every detail of her applications, Victoria treated the process like a formality. Her father had connections at multiple medical schools, and she spoke confidently about her safety schools and reach programs, as if she were choosing between vacation destinations. The casual privilege stung Maya every time she overheard these conversations. Spring brought acceptance letters, and the divide between Maya and her classmates became even more apparent. Victoria got into her top-choice program, a prestigious East Coast school, where her father had donated a new wing to the hospital. Ashley and Madison also received multiple acceptances. Maya waited anxiously as rejection letter after rejection letter arrived in her tiny mailbox. Finally, in late April, Maya received acceptance to state medical school with a full scholarship. It wasn't prestigious, but it was an opportunity, and she was grateful. Her mother cried when Maya called with the news, and for the first time in years, Maya felt like her sacrifices had been worth it. She had made it. She was going to be a doctor. Graduation day arrived with perfect spring weather. Maya's mother had requested the day off work, something she rarely did, and arrived wearing her best dress, a simple navy outfit she'd bought years ago for Maya's high school graduation. They didn't have money for the traditional graduation dinner or professional photos, but Linda's pride was unmistakable as she hugged her daughter. The ceremony was held in the university's grand auditorium, with families filling the seats and graduates in their caps and gowns waiting backstage. Maya felt a mixture of excitement and relief. She had survived 4 years of feeling like an outsider. After today, she could leave Westfield behind and start fresh in medical school, where, hopefully, her background wouldn't matter as much. As the pre-med students gathered in their designated area, Maya noticed Victoria surrounded by her family, parents, grandparents, siblings, all impeccably dressed and obviously wealthy. Professional photographers followed them around, capturing every moment. Ashley and Madison had similar entourages, their families treating graduation like a social event. Maya stood with her mother, feeling suddenly self-conscious about their modest appearance among all the designer clothing and expensive jewelry. Linda seemed to sense her daughter's discomfort and squeezed her hand reassuringly. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. "You earned this." The ceremony began with the usual pomp and circumstance. The dean gave opening remarks, followed by speeches from various administrators. Maya only half listened, too nervous and excited to focus completely. Her name would be called soon, and she would walk across that stage as a college graduate, the first in her family to achieve this milestone. Then the dean announced that they had a special guest speaker, someone who had made a significant contribution to the university and wanted to address the graduating class. Maya felt her stomach tighten as she wondered if this would delay the ceremony. Her mother had to work that evening and couldn't afford to miss another shift. The man who walked onto the stage was distinguished-looking, probably in his 60s, wearing an expensive suit that somehow managed to look understated rather than flashy. He had kind eyes and a gentle smile as he approached the podium. The dean introduced him as a successful entrepreneur and philanthropist, though Maya missed his name while trying to calm her nerves. As the guest speaker began his remarks, Maya found herself paying attention despite her anxiety. He spoke about perseverance, about the value of hard work, about students who had overcome significant obstacles to reach this moment. His words seemed directed at the entire graduating class, but Maya felt like he was speaking directly to her experiences. Then something unexpected happened. Victoria, sitting 2 rows ahead of Maya, began whispering to Ashley and Madison. Their conversation grew louder, drawing disapproving looks from other students and families. Maya couldn't hear exactly what they were saying, but she could see Victoria pointing in her direction and smirking. The speaker paused mid-sentence, his eyes scanning the audience. Maya felt her cheeks burn as she realized that Victoria's group was creating a disruption during the ceremony. Other graduates were starting to notice, and Maya wanted to disappear into her seat. Victoria seemed emboldened by the attention and spoke just loud enough for several rows to hear. "Some people really think they belong here, don't they? It's almost sad how hard they try to fit in." Ashley giggled and added, "At least after today we won't have to pretend to include everyone anymore. Medical school has standards." Madison's voice carried clearly across the section. "I heard she's going to state med. How appropriate. The bargain basement option for bargain basement students." The words hit Maya like physical blows. After 4 years of enduring their subtle cruelty, preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Victoria and her friends had chosen graduation day, her moment of triumph, to humiliate her publicly. Families around them were staring now, some looking disapproving of the disruption, others seemingly entertained by the drama. Maya felt tears threatening and fought to hold them back. Her mother reached for her hand, but Maya could see the hurt and anger in Linda's eyes. After all her mother's sacrifices, after all Maya's hard work, these privileged students were trying to steal her moment of joy. The guest speaker had stopped talking entirely now, watching the situation unfold. The entire auditorium seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Maya wanted to stand up and defend herself, to tell Victoria exactly what she thought of her cruelty, but she felt paralyzed by humiliation and the fear of making the situation worse. Victoria, perhaps realizing she had gone too far but unable to stop herself, delivered what she clearly intended as the final blow. "I guess we should be grateful. Someone has to treat the patients who can't afford real doctors." The silence that followed was deafening. Maya felt like every person in that auditorium was staring at her, judging her, agreeing with Victoria's assessment. 4 years of proving herself, of excelling academically, of maintaining her dignity in the face of constant subtle attacks, and it all came down to this moment of public humiliation. Her mother's hand tightened around hers, and Maya could feel Linda trembling with suppressed anger. This was supposed to be their day of celebration, the culmination of years of sacrifice and hard work. Instead, it had become another reminder that in the eyes of people like Victoria, Maya would never truly belong. The guest speaker cleared his throat, and his voice carried across the silent auditorium with unexpected authority. "I believe I was in the middle of discussing the true meaning of achievement," he said, his tone calm but pointed. "Perhaps this is the perfect moment to address what real success actually looks like." Maya felt every eye in the auditorium shift between her and the speaker. Victoria's smug expression faltered slightly, but she maintained her defiant posture, clearly expecting the disruption to be handled with a simple request for quiet. "You see," the speaker continued, his gaze sweeping across the graduating class, "I've spent the last 30 years building companies, creating jobs, and yes, accumulating wealth. But I've learned that true character isn't measured by what you're given. It's revealed by what you do with whatever circumstances you find yourself in." His eyes seemed to find Maya in the crowd, and she felt a strange sense of recognition, though she was certain they'd never met. "I know of a young woman in this graduating class who took 3 buses every morning to get to campus, who worked double shifts to afford textbooks while her classmates complained about delayed allowances, who studied in the library until closing time because she didn't have the luxury of assuming success was guaranteed." Maya's heart began to race. How could this stranger know such specific details about her life? She glanced around nervously, wondering if someone had provided him with information about scholarship students for his speech. This student maintained a perfect GPA while working 25 hours per week. She scored in the 99th percentile on the MCAT, despite being unable to afford expensive prep courses. She applied to 15 medical schools, not because she was indecisive, but because she needed full scholarships and couldn't afford the luxury of choice. Victoria's face had gone pale. The confidence that had radiated from her moments earlier was crumbling, as the speaker's words made it clear who he was describing. Ashley and Madison exchanged uncomfortable glances, suddenly realizing their public mockery had backfired spectacularly. Meanwhile, the speaker's voice grew slightly harder. "I've observed other students who coasted through 4 years on their parents' connections, who complained about professors being too demanding while their tutors did half their work, who assumed medical school acceptance was their birthright rather than something to be earned." The auditorium was completely silent now. Parents in the audience began to shift uncomfortably, some clearly recognizing their own children in the speaker's description. Maya felt her mother's hand squeeze hers tighter, both of them too stunned to fully process what was happening. "Let me tell you about character," the speaker continued, his voice growing warmer as he looked directly at Maya. "Character is working extra shifts to help your daughter pay application fees, even when your hands are cracked from cleaning chemicals and you're exhausted from working nights. Character is maintaining dignity when others try to make you feel small. Character is choosing kindness even when you're not shown the same courtesy. Maya felt tears building in her eyes, but this time they weren't from humiliation. Someone, this distinguished stranger, was publicly acknowledging everything she and her mother had sacrificed. For the first time in 4 years, she felt truly seen. "I want to share something with you all," the speaker said, his tone becoming more personal. 28 years ago, I was young and foolish. I thought success meant surrounding myself with people who looked and lived like me. I made choices based on what I thought would advance my career rather than what my heart told me was right. He paused, seeming to gather himself before continuing. I walked away from the most important relationship of my life because I was convinced that love wasn't enough if it didn't come with the right pedigree, the right connections, the right image for the future I thought I wanted. Maya felt a strange chill run through her. Something about his voice, about the way he spoke, triggered a memory she couldn't quite grasp. Her mother had gone very still beside her, and when Maya glanced at her, Linda's face had gone white. I left behind a brilliant, beautiful woman who worked nights cleaning offices to put herself through nursing school. I told myself it was because we wanted different things, but the truth was, I was a coward who cared more about what other people thought than about real love. Maya's breath caught in her throat. The details were too specific, too familiar. She looked at her mother, whose eyes were fixed on the speaker with an expression Maya had never seen before, a mixture of shock, pain, and something that might have been hope. I found out years later that this woman was pregnant when I left, that she raised our daughter alone, working multiple jobs to make sure that little girl had every opportunity to succeed. I missed everything. First steps, first words, birthdays, graduations, all because I thought I was too good for a life that would have been richer than anything I actually built. The auditorium was so quiet that Maya could hear her own heartbeat. Victoria and her friends looked frozen, their earlier cruelty now seeming petty and small in the face of this revelation. Maya felt like she was in a dream, unable to fully process what she was hearing. That daughter grew up to be everything I could have hoped for in a child. Brilliant, compassionate, hardworking, kind. She earned a full scholarship to medical school through her own merit, not because of connections or money, but because she inherited the best qualities from the woman who raised her. Maya's legs felt weak. She looked at her mother, whose tears were flowing freely now. "Mom?" she whispered. But Linda seemed unable to speak. The speaker's voice grew thick with emotion. "Maya Chen, you are my daughter, and I have spent 28 years regretting the biggest mistake of my life. Your mother, Linda, is the strongest, most remarkable woman I've ever known, and I was too young and stupid to realize what I was throwing away." The auditorium erupted. Gasps and murmurs filled the air as people processed this unexpected revelation. Maya felt like the world was spinning around her. The distinguished speaker, this successful businessman, was claiming to be her father, the man who had walked out when she was 12 and never looked back. But even as her mind struggled to accept it, pieces began falling into place. The way he'd known such specific details about her life. The recognition she'd felt when she first saw him. The reason her mother looked like she'd seen a ghost. "I hired private investigators years ago to find you both," he continued, his eyes locked on Maya's. "I've been watching from a distance, too ashamed to reach out, too proud to admit how wrong I'd been. I've followed your academic career, your achievements, your mother's sacrifices. I've wanted to help, to be part of your lives, but I didn't know how to bridge the gap I created." Maya stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. The sound echoed through the silent auditorium, and every head turned toward her. She felt exposed, vulnerable, but also angry in a way she hadn't expected. "You can't do this," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the space. "You can't just show up after all these years and make this about you. This is my graduation day. This is supposed to be about what I accomplished, not about your guilt." The speaker, her father, nodded slowly. "You're absolutely right. And that's exactly why I needed to say this publicly. Because what you've accomplished is extraordinary, and everyone in this room should know it. including the young women who thought it was appropriate to mock you for succeeding despite obstacles they'll never face. He turned his attention to Victoria, who looked like she wanted to disappear into her seat. Miss Sterling, I believe you had some comments about bargain basement students and people who don't belong here. Victoria's face went crimson. Her parents, sitting in the front row, looked mortified as they realized their daughter's behavior had been called out publicly by one of the university's major donors. Let me be clear, Maya's father continued, his voice sharp now. My daughter belongs anywhere she chooses to be. She earned her place here through merit, through sacrifice, through character. She'll be an exceptional doctor, not because of privilege, but because she understands what it means to struggle, to fight for everything she has. He looked back at Maya, his expression softening. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm not asking to be part of your life if you don't want me there. But I needed everyone here to know who you really are. You're not just Maya Chen, the scholarship student. You're Maya Chen, my daughter, and you've become everything good despite having nothing from me but DNA. Maya felt her mother stand beside her, Linda's hand finding hers. For a moment, the three of them formed a strange tableau: the father who had left, the mother who had stayed, and the daughter caught between past and future. Your mother raised a woman of extraordinary character, he continued. She deserves recognition for that achievement as much as you deserve recognition for your own. Linda Chen, you succeeded where I failed completely. Maya looked at her mother, seeing her not just as the tired woman who worked nights to support them, but as the young nursing student who had been abandoned by someone she trusted. The strength it must have taken to raise a child alone, to never speak bitterly about the father who left, to encourage Maya to aim high despite their circumstances. I have a question, Maya said suddenly, her voice steadier now. If you've been watching all these years, if you knew what we were going through, why didn't you help? Why didn't you send money for textbooks or application fees or any of the 1,000 things that would have made our lives easier? Her father's shoulders sagged slightly. Because I was a coward. Because I was afraid you'd reject my help, and that would force me to face what I'd done. It was selfish. I let you both struggle because dealing with my guilt was more comfortable than risking rejection. The honesty of his answer surprised Maya. She had expected excuses, justifications, explanations that would make him look better. Instead, he was acknowledging his failures without trying to minimize them. But I can't stay silent anymore, he continued. Not when I watch those students try to diminish you. Not when your achievements are being dismissed by people who wouldn't last a week facing the challenges you've overcome. Maya looked around the auditorium, taking in all the faces staring at her. Some looked sympathetic, others curious. A few seemed uncomfortable with the drama unfolding before them. Victoria and her friends appeared to be trying to make themselves invisible. This doesn't change anything, Maya said finally, her voice carrying to every corner of the auditorium. I'm still the same person I was 10 minutes ago. I still earned everything I have through my own work. I still got into medical school on my own merit. Having a biological father with money doesn't make my achievements less valid or more valid. She paused, looking directly at Victoria. And it definitely doesn't make the cruelty I've faced acceptable. Money doesn't buy character, and privilege doesn't excuse treating people badly. The silence stretched until the dean, clearly uncomfortable with the situation, approached the microphone. Perhaps we should continue with the ceremony, he suggested diplomatically. But Maya's father wasn't finished. Actually, there's one more thing I need to say. Maya, I know I have no right to ask anything of you. But I've established a foundation for first-generation college students, and I'd like you to help run it. Not because you're my daughter, but because you understand what these students face in a way I never could. Maya felt the weight of hundreds of eyes on her, waiting for her response. This man had walked back into her life in the most public way possible, exposing family secrets and personal pain in front of her entire graduating class. Part of her was furious at the presumption, the way he'd made her private struggles into a public spectacle. But another part of her recognized something else in his offer. An opportunity to help other students who were facing the same challenges she had overcome. A chance to ensure that the next generation of first-generation college students wouldn't have to struggle alone the way she had. I'll consider it, she said finally. But any decision I make will be based on what's best for the students the foundation serves, not on what makes you feel better about the past. He nodded, accepting her conditions without argument. That's all I can ask for. The dean moved to the microphone again, clearly eager to restore some normalcy to the ceremony. Let's continue with the presentation of degrees, he announced, and the graduates began filing toward the stage. As Maya's name was called and she walked across the stage to receive her diploma, the applause was thunderous. She realized that what had started as her most humiliating moment had somehow transformed into something else entirely. She wasn't just Maya Chen, the scholarship student who didn't belong. She was Maya Chen, the young woman who had overcome every obstacle placed in her path. Victoria's name was called a few minutes later, and the applause was noticeably more subdued. Maya felt no satisfaction in this. She took no joy in others' discomfort. But she did feel a sense of justice in the way the afternoon had unfolded. After the ceremony, as families gathered for photos and celebrations, Maya found herself surrounded by classmates she'd barely spoken to during 4 years of college. Some wanted to congratulate her, others seemed curious about her story, and a few appeared to be reassessing their own assumptions about who deserved respect. Her mother stood nearby, still processing everything that had happened. Maya's father approached them hesitantly, clearly unsure of his welcome. "Linda," he said softly, "I owe you an apology that's 28 years overdue. You raised an incredible daughter, and you did it without any help from me. I can never make up for that, but I want you to know that I see how amazing she is, and I know that's entirely because of you." Linda looked at him for a long moment before responding. "She made herself amazing, David. I just tried not to get in her way." Maya realized this was the first time she'd heard her father's name spoken aloud in her presence. David. It made him seem more real. Less like a figure from her imagination and more like an actual person who had made actual choices. "What happens now?" Maya asked, looking between her parents. "Now you go to medical school," her father said. "You become the doctor you're meant to be. You help people who need it. And if you decide you want me to be part of that journey, I'll be grateful. If you don't, I'll understand." Maya looked at her mother, seeking guidance as she had so many times before. Linda's expression was complicated, pain and anger mixed with something that might have been cautious hope. "I need time," Maya said finally. "This is a lot to process, and I won't make any decisions while I'm emotional." David nodded. "Take all the time you need. I've waited 28 years. I can wait as long as it takes." As the afternoon wound down and families began to leave, Maya found herself walking across campus one last time. Her mother walked beside her, both of them quiet as they processed the day's events. "Are you okay?" Maya asked. Linda smiled, though her eyes were still bright with unshed tears. "I'm proud of you. I've always been proud of you, but today I saw other people recognize what I've always known. You're extraordinary, Maya, not because of who your father is, but because of who you chose to become." Victoria appeared on the path ahead of them, clearly having waited for this moment. She approached hesitantly, her earlier confidence completely gone. "Maya, I wanted to apologize," she said, her voice small. "What I said earlier was horrible. You didn't deserve that, especially not today." Maya studied Victoria's face, looking for signs of genuine remorse versus damage control. "Why did you do it, Victoria? What did I ever do to you that made you think it was okay to treat me that way?" Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "Nothing. You never did anything. I think that's what made it worse. You were everything I pretended to be. Smart, hardworking, genuine. I knew my grades were inflated. That I was only here because of my family's donations. Seeing you succeed on your own merit made me feel like a fraud." The admission surprised Maya. She had assumed Victoria's cruelty came from a sense of superiority, not from insecurity. "That doesn't excuse the way you treated me," Maya said firmly. "Your feelings about yourself don't justify trying to tear someone else down." "I know," Victoria said, tears flowing freely now. "I know, and I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed you to know that you were right about everything. You do belong here. You belong anywhere you want to be." Maya looked at this young woman who had made her life miserable for 4 years, who had tried to humiliate her on what should have been her greatest day. She felt anger, yes, but also something unexpected. Pity. "I hope medical school teaches you more than just science, Victoria," Maya said finally. "I hope it teaches you empathy. Your future patients will need that from you." As Victoria walked away, Maya felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. She realized that the approval or disapproval of people like Victoria had never actually mattered. What mattered was the work she would do, the patient she would help, the difference she would make in the world. 6 months later, Maya was thriving in her first year of medical school. The foundation her father had mentioned became a reality, and she did choose to help guide its mission, though their personal relationship remained cautious and complicated. Her mother had gone back to school herself, using money David provided to pursue a degree in social work. Linda's dream of helping others had been deferred but never forgotten, and now she had the opportunity to make it real. Maya still thought about graduation day sometimes, about how quickly everything had changed. She had learned that justice doesn't always come in the form you expect, and that sometimes the people who try to make you feel small are the ones who feel smallest inside. Most importantly, she had learned that belonging isn't something others grant you. It's something you claim for yourself through your actions, your character, and your refusal to let anyone else define your worth. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.